The massive council chamber stretched across the entire top floor of the Galactic Assembly Building. Representatives from over 300 different species filled the room. Each species had its own section, designed to accommodate their unique physical needs. Some floated in water tanks, others perched on special branches, and a few even hovered in anti-gravity fields. At the center of it all stood Elder Corvax, his forearms spread wide as he addressed the assembly. His species, the Zinthari, had been spacefaring for over 10,000 years. They were among the oldest and most respected civilizations in the galaxy. We have called this emergency session for one reason. Corvax's voice boomed through the universal translator system. The humans have achieved faster-than-light travel. A ripple of concern passed through the crowd. Many species shifted uncomfortably in their seats. The Vorthan ambassador's tentacles curled inward, a sign of deep worry. The crystalline prisms flickered with agitated colors. They reached this milestone far sooner than our prediction suggested, continued Corvax. Our scientists estimated it would take them at least another century. They achieved it in merely 20 years since first contact. Ambassador Thrix of the Kelleran Empire stood up, his insectoid wings buzzing with annoyance. So what? Many species develop FTL technology. Why should we fear these humans? Corvax's eyes, all 6 of them, focused on Thrix with an intensity that made the Kelleran ambassador step back. Because you're young, Thrix, your species has only been among the stars for 500 years. You did not witness what we witnessed. You did not see what happened the last time someone provoked humanity. The elder's words sent a chill through even the warmest-blooded species in the room. Corvax was not known for dramatics. If he was concerned, there was good reason. Tell us, urged Ambassador Zura of the Aquatic Coalition, her voice bubbling through the water of her tank. What happened? Corvax settled into his speaking position, a pose his species adopted when preparing to share important history. It was 50 Earth years ago. Humanity had barely reached their own moon. They were considered a Class F civilization, pre-FTL, barely worth monitoring. The Drakkar hegemony decided they would make perfect slaves. Several younger species representatives gasped. The Drakkar hegemony had been one of the most powerful military forces in the galaxy before their mysterious disappearance 40 years ago. The Drakkar sent a single battlecruiser to Earth, Corvax continued. It was supposed to be simple. Land, demonstrate superior firepower, demand surrender. The Drakkar had done this to dozens of primitive worlds. But they made one crucial mistake. They underestimated humanity's response to threats. The chamber fell completely silent. Even the constant hum of life support systems seemed to fade as everyone leaned in to listen. The humans destroyed the battlecruiser, Corvax said simply. Impossible, shouted Ambassador Grax of the Thorian Confederacy. Preftel civilization defeating a Drakkar Battlecruiser. Their ships were invincible. Not to humans, Corvax replied. The humans used something they called nuclear weapons. Primitive by our standards, but effective. They launched over 200 of these weapons at the battlecruiser. The Drakkar shields were designed to stop energy weapons and kinetic projectiles, not crude atomic explosions. The radiation alone killed half the crew before the ship crashed into their ocean. But surely that was luck, suggested another ambassador. One victory against a surprised enemy means nothing. Corvax's skin patterns shifted to show disagreement, a form of expression among his people. The Drakkar thought the same thing. They sent a full invasion fleet, 30 battlecruisers, 2 dreadnoughts, and over 1 million ground troops. The humans were given the standard ultimatum, surrender or face extinction. He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. The humans chose a third option. They sent a message to the Drakkar fleet. It was simple. Leave now, or we will end you. The Drakkar laughed. They began their assault. And, prompted Zira, unable to contain her curiosity. The humans had spent the time between encounters preparing. They had reverse-engineered technology from the crashed battlecruiser, combined it with their own innovations. When the Drakkar fleet entered Earth's atmosphere, they were met with weapons that should not have existed on a pre-FTL world. Plasma cannons built from scavenged Drakkar tech. magnetic accelerators that launch projectiles at percentages of light speed, and more nuclear weapons than anyone thought possible for such a young species to possess. Korvax's voice grew darker. But that was not the most terrifying part. The humans had done something no other species had ever attempted. They had weaponized their entire planet. Every major city had become a fortress. Every citizen had become a soldier. They turned their whole civilization into a weapon aimed at the invaders. The battle lasted 7 Earth days. When it ended, the entire Drakkar fleet was destroyed. Not damaged, not driven off, completely annihilated. The humans then did something that shocked the entire galaxy. They rebuilt one of the Drakkar ships using salvage parts and their own technology. They flew it to the Drakkar homeworld. Gasps echoed through the chamber. The idea of a primitive species not only defending against the Drakkar, but taking the fight to them was unthinkable. What they found there explains why the Drakkar hegemony vanished, Korvax said. The humans discovered that the Drakkar had enslaved hundreds of species. The humans broadcasted a simple message to all of them. You are free now. Rise up. They provided weapons and technology to every slave species. Within a year, the Drakkar hegemony collapsed from internal rebellion. The humans never fired a shot at the Drakkar homeworld. They didn't need to. Ambassador Thrix was no longer buzzing with annoyance. His wings were perfectly still, a sign of deep fear among his kind. But they were primitive. How could they do this? That is the danger of humanity, Korvax explained. They adapt faster than any species we have encountered. They learn from their enemies, improve upon what they learn, and then use it in ways no one expects. When threatened, they unify with a speed and determination that defies all logical models. And most terrifying of all, they never forget a threat. Surely you exaggerate, said Ambassador Yrix of the Silicon Alliance, her crystalline form pulsing with skepticism. One incident does not define a species. Korvax turned to face her. Then, let me tell you about the Krillin incident. The Krillin were pirates who raided human colony ships 15 years ago. They killed 30,000 human colonists and took their supplies. The humans hunted them across 7 star systems. When they finally caught the Krillin fleet, the humans didn't just destroy them. They dismantled their entire criminal network, freed every slave, returned every stolen item to its rightful owners across 50 different species, and then established a permanent patrol force to ensure pirates never operated in that region again. He looked around the room. Or shall I tell you about the Nexus Corporation? They tried to economically exploit human colonies through predatory trade agreements. The humans responded by creating their own trade network that undercut Nexus prices by 90%. Nexus went bankrupt within 2 years, and the humans bought all their assets for a fraction of their worth. They now use those assets to provide fair trade to developing species. The pattern is always the same, Korvax continued. Someone threatens or attacks humanity. The humans respond with innovation, determination, and unity that surpasses all predictions. They don't just defend, they completely neutralize the threat and ensure it can never happen again. And now they have FTL technology. The weight of this revelation settled over the assembly like a heavy blanket. Many species had plans for expansion that might bring them into conflict with human territory. Others had been eyeing human resources with greedy intent. All of them were now reconsidering. What do you suggest we do? Asked Ambassador Zira. We do nothing to provoke them, Korvax said firmly. We treat them with respect. We engage in fair trade. We honor our agreements. And, above all, we never, ever threaten them or their allies. And if someone has threatened them, asked Thrix. Korvax's expression was grim. Then we stay out of the way and pray the humans show mercy. Because history has shown that those who provoke humanity do not merely lose. They cease to exist as a threat. The humans do not just win wars. They win them so completely that their enemies either become their allies or vanish entirely. The assembly erupted into heated discussion. Some argued that surely a united galaxy could contain humanity if needed. Others pointed out that humanity had defeated every threat while they were still primitive. What could they do now with FTL technology? But Korvax wasn't finished. He raised his arms for silence. There's one more thing you must understand about humans. They have a concept they call friendship. When they consider you a friend, they will move stars to protect you. The Altrurian Republic learned this when their sun began to die. The humans, who had only known the Altrurians for 5 years, mobilized their entire fleet to help evacuate the planet. They saved 7 billion lives and refused any payment. They said, "This is what friends do." He let that sink in before continuing. But they have another concept called vengeance. And for those who harm their friends or threaten their people, there is no force in the galaxy that will save you from human vengeance. The Scotty Raiders learned this when they attacked a human medical ship providing aid to plague victims. The humans tracked down every single Scotty ship, even those that weren't involved in the attack. The Scotty no longer exist as a spacefaring species. Ambassador Grax stood up slowly. "So, you're saying we should fear them?" "No," Korvax shook his head. "I'm saying we should respect them. Humanity responds to the treatment they receive. Show them hostility, and they will end you. Show them friendship, and they will die to protect you. They're not conquerors by nature. They only become conquerors when someone tries to conquer them." "But what if they decide to expand their territory?" asked another ambassador. "What if they want our resources?" Korvax almost seemed to smile, though his species expressed amusement differently. The humans have a saying, "We have enough enemies. We'd rather have friends." In every first contact situation where they were met with peace, they responded with peace. They have established trade relations with over 60 species now, and not one has a complaint about unfair treatment. They even have laws protecting primitive species from exploitation, laws stricter than our own. The elder's voice grew serious again. "But remember this warning. Do not mistake their preference for peace as weakness. Do not think their willingness to trade means they can be cheated. And never, ever believe that their size or youth in the galactic community makes them an easy target. The graveyard of history is filled with those who made that mistake." As the assembly continued to debate, news arrived that proved Korvax's point. The human ambassador to the Galactic Council had just announced that humanity was offering to share their FTL technology with any species that signed a mutual defense and fair trade agreement. The terms were generous, almost suspiciously so, but those who knew human history understood. This wasn't generosity born from weakness. It was the humans doing what they always did, turning potential enemies into allies before conflict could arise. They were building a network of friends across the galaxy, each one a species that would now have a vested interest in humanity's success. "You see," Korvax addressed the assembly one final time. "They could have kept the technology secret, used it as an advantage to dominate. Instead, they offer to share it, but only with those who promise friendship. This is how humans think. They would rather have the entire galaxy as allies than rule it through fear." Ambassador Thrix raised a claw. "And those who refuse their offer will find themselves left behind as the rest of the galaxy advances," Korvax replied. "The humans won't attack them. They won't need to. By the time those species realize their mistake, humanity and their allies will have advanced so far ahead that catching up will be impossible. That is the choice before us all. Join humanity in friendship and prosper, or stand apart and become irrelevant." The session continued for hours, but the outcome was never really in doubt. One by one, species representatives announced their intention to accept the human offer. Even the most militant species recognized the wisdom in avoiding conflict with humanity. As the assembly finally adjourned, Ambassador Zira approached Korvax. "Do you really think this will work? Can the galaxy truly coexist peacefully with humanity?" Korvax considered the question carefully. "I believe so. The humans have shown they prefer building to destroying. They would rather create than conquer. As long as we don't give them a reason to show their other face, I think we will find them to be the best allies we could ask for. And if someone does give them a reason," Korvax's expression was grave. "Then the galaxy will learn why the elders warned against provoking humanity. And those who survive the lesson will never forget it." As the representatives filed out to report back to their governments, each carried the same message: accept the humans' friendship, engage with them honestly, and prosper together. Or oppose them and face the same fate as every other species that had made that mistake. Within a month, over 200 species had signed agreements with humanity. The galactic landscape was changing rapidly, and at the center of it all were the humans, the young species that everyone had underestimated, now becoming the catalyst for the greatest alliance in galactic history. But in the shadows, some still plotted. Some still believed that humanity could be conquered, controlled, or eliminated. They had not heeded the elders' warnings. They would learn, as others had before them, that provoking humanity was the last mistake they would ever make. The transformation of the galaxy had begun, and nothing would ever be the same. The age of humanity had arrived, not through conquest, but through the simple principle they lived by: we prefer friends to enemies, but we excel at dealing with both. The mining vessel Starforge floated silently in the asteroid belt of the Kepler system. Captain Marcus Chun watched the scanning displays with growing excitement. The asteroids here were rich in rare minerals that Earth's growing fleet desperately needed. After 3 weeks of surveying, they had found enough resources to supply humanity's shipyards for a decade. "Captain, we're picking up an energy signature," reported Lieutenant Sarah Kim from the sensor station. 3 ships approaching from the outer system. Configuration unknown. Chun frowned. According to the Galactic Council, this system was unclaimed. "How long until they reach us?" "At their current speed, 40 minutes, sir." "Open a channel. Let's see who our visitors are." The main screen flickered to life, revealing a sight that made the entire bridge crew tense. The being on screen was unlike any species in the Galactic Council database. It stood 9 feet tall, covered in black chitinous armor that seemed to absorb light. 6 arms protruded from its torso, each ending in weapons that looked organic but radiated deadly purpose. Its head was elongated, with no visible eyes, just a series of heat-sensing pits that glowed with an eerie red light. "Human vessel." The creature spoke, its voice a harsh rasp that the translator struggled with. "I am War Master Krax of the Vorthack Dominion. You trespass in our territory. Surrender your ship and technology, or be destroyed." Chun stood slowly, his face calm despite the threat. Humanity had protocols for this situation. "War Master Krax, I am Captain Marcus Chun of the Earth ship Starforge. According to Galactic Council records, this system is unclaimed. We are here on a peaceful mining expedition. If this is your territory, we're happy to discuss terms for shared access or compensation." The aliens' heat pits flared brighter. "The Galactic Council holds no authority here. We are the Vorthack. We conquered this galaxy before your council species learned to walk. We have returned from the void between galaxies to reclaim what is ours. You have one chance. Surrender or face the fate of those who oppose us." Chen's crew looked to him nervously. The Starforge was a mining vessel, equipped with defensive weapons, but hardly a match for 3 warships. But Chen had studied human history, particularly the encounters Elder Korvax had warned about. He knew that showing weakness now would only invite greater aggression later. "War Master, I respect your claim, but I cannot surrender my ship or crew. I propose we contact the Galactic Council to mediate this dispute. Surely there's a solution that doesn't require violence." Krax's laughter was like grinding metal. "Violence is the only truth in the universe, human. Your council is weak, built on the fantasy of cooperation. The Vorthack spent 1,000 years conquering this galaxy. We left to seek greater challenges in other galaxies. Now we return to find our empire overrun by a soft species playing at civilization. That ends now. I'm sending you coordinates," Chen said calmly. "There's a Galactic Council station 2 systems from here. Meet us there, and we can discuss your territorial claims properly." "The time for discussion has passed," Krax snarled. "You have seen the Vorthack. You know of our return. We cannot allow you to warn others. Prepare to be boarded." The channel closed. Chen immediately turned to his crew. "All hands, battle stations. Sarah, send an emergency message to Earth Command and the Galactic Council. Include all sensor data on these Vorthack. Make sure it gets through no matter what. Message sent, Captain. The Vortex ships are accelerating. They'll be here in 20 minutes. Weapons status? Mining lasers can be converted to combat mode, but they won't penetrate military shields for long. We have 24 fusion missiles meant for asteroid braking. Defense grid is online, but it's designed for debris, not warfare. Shin nodded. The odds were terrible, but humans have faced worse odds before. Target their engines with the mining lasers. If we can slow them down, it gives the message more time to reach help. Load all missiles and prepare to fire on my command. The bridge became a flurry of activity. Engineers rerouted power from non-essential systems to weapons and shields. Miners who had never fought in their lives checked personal weapons and prepared to repel boarders. Everyone understood what was at stake. This wasn't just about their survival. It was about warning humanity and the galaxy of this new threat. The Vortex ships dropped out of FDL dangerously close to the Starforge, a tactic meant to intimidate. Each vessel was a nightmare of organic-looking technology, all sharp angles, and weapon ports. They were clearly built for one purpose: war. Incoming transmission, Sarah reported. Let's hear it. Cracks appeared on screen again. Your message has been intercepted and destroyed, human. No one will know of our return until we choose to announce it. Surrender now, and I promise your death will be quick. Shin smiled coldly. You intercepted one message. We sent 12, each by different methods. Some are probably reaching Earth as we speak. You've already lost the element of surprise, War Master. The question now is whether you want to start your return to the galaxy by attacking a peaceful mining vessel, or whether you want to talk like civilized beings. The heat pits on Krax's head flared so bright they were almost white. Civilized? We are Vortex. We were conquering stars when your species was learning to use fire. Fire all weapons. The space around the Starforge erupted into chaos. Energy beams lashed out from the Vortex ships, striking the mining vessel's shields with tremendous force. The shields, designed to protect against micrometeorites and solar radiation, began failing almost immediately. Return fire, Shun ordered. The converted mining lasers struck back, focusing on the lead ship's engines as planned. To everyone's surprise, the beams cut deeper than expected. The Vortex organic armor seemed vulnerable to the specific frequency used for asteroid cutting. Captain, I'm reading something strange, the science officer called out. Their hull composition, it's similar to the asteroids in this belt. The mining lasers are perfectly calibrated to cut through it. All lasers, concentrate fire on their weapon ports. Shun commanded. Missiles ready, armed and targeted, sir. Hold them until their shields fluctuate. We might only get one shot at this. The battle raged for several minutes. The Starforge shook under constant bombardment, systems failing one by one. But the mining lasers were doing unexpected damage to the Vortex ships, carving through their organic armor like butter. It seemed the aliens' 1,000-year absence had left them unprepared for how mining technology had advanced. Their lead ship's shields are failing. Sarah shouted, all missiles, target that ship. Fire. 24 fusion missiles, each designed to crack open asteroids, streaked toward the damaged Vortex vessel. The aliens' point defense systems destroyed half of them, but 12 got through. The explosions that followed lit up the asteroid field like a new sun. When the glare faded, the lead Vortex ship was gone, reduced to an expanding cloud of organic debris. One down, Chin said grimly. How are our shields? Failing, sir. Maybe 5 minutes left. The remaining 2 Vortex ships had stopped their casual approach. They now maneuvered with deadly purpose, clearly reassessing the threat level of the mere mining vessel. Incoming transmission from a Vortex. This time, a different alien appeared on screen. Its armor was more elaborate, suggesting higher rank. I am Supreme War Master Thrak. You have destroyed a Vortex vessel. This is impossible. What manner of weapons do you possess? Just mining equipment, Chin replied. Imagine what our actual warships can do. I suggest you reconsider your approach to returning to the galaxy. The species here have grown stronger in your absence. Thrak's heat pits pulsed rhythmically. One lucky victory means nothing. We have conquered 100 galaxies. We have weapons you cannot imagine. This setback merely means we will return with a proper fleet. And you'll find humanity and the Galactic Council ready for you, Chen said. Or you could try a different approach. The galaxy has changed. There's room for everyone, even returning conquerors, if you're willing to coexist peacefully. The Vorthack do not coexist. We dominate. Thrak's image flickered. But you have earned a warrior's respect, human. We will withdraw for now. When we return, we will be prepared for your mining lasers and fusion missiles. Prepare your species. The Vorthack Dominion will reclaim what is ours. The two remaining ships turned and accelerated away, jumping to FTL at the system's edge. Chen slumped in his captain's chair, exhaustion hitting him all at once. Damage report? Shields are down, hull breaches on decks 3 and 7. We lost 2 crew members to decompression. Engines are damaged, but functional. We can make it to the nearest station for repairs. Chen closed his eyes briefly, honoring the fallen. Send another message to Earth Command. Priority 1. Include all battle data. The galaxy needs to know about the Vorthack. 3 days later, the Starforge limped into Harmony Station, a joint human council facility. The news of their encounter had preceded them. Ships from a dozen species had already arrived, and more were coming. The emergency session of the Galactic Council had been called. In the council chambers, Elder Korvax listened to Captain Chen's detailed report with growing concern. When Chen finished, the Elder turned to address the assembled representatives. The Vorthack Dominion, he said slowly. We thought the myth, legend from before our oldest records. If they have truly returned. Who are they? Asked the human ambassador, Diana Mitchell. According to our most ancient texts, they were the first great empire of this galaxy. They ruled through fear and strength alone, enslaving or destroying all who opposed them. Then, one day, they simply vanished. Some said they were destroyed by an even greater threat. Others believed they left to conquer new galaxies. It seems the second theory was correct. Captain Chen destroyed one of their ships with mining equipment, Mitchell pointed out. They can't be that invincible. Do not underestimate them, Korvax warned. If the legends are true, what Captain Chen faced was likely a scout force. The true Vorthack fleet would number in the thousands, with weapons that make our current technology look primitive. Then, we need to prepare, Mitchell said firmly. Humanity proposes an immediate military alliance. All council species contributing to a joint defense fleet. Shared technology, combined training, unified command structure. Some representatives protested. The idea of such military cooperation was unprecedented. But others, remembering Korvax's warnings about humanity, saw the wisdom in the proposal. The humans are right, announced Ambassador Zura. We face a threat to all our civilizations. We must stand together or fall separately. Within hours, the framework for the Galactic Defense Alliance was being drafted. Humanity, as the species with the most recent combat experience, would lead the military planning. Their gift for innovation and adaptation would be crucial in preparing for the Vorthack return. But humanity didn't stop there. They did what they always did when faced with a threat. They innovated. Within weeks, human scientists had analyzed the debris from the destroyed Vorthack ship. They discovered weaknesses in the organic armor, vulnerabilities in their shield frequencies, and patterns in their tactical thinking. More importantly, they shared everything with their allies. No hoarding of advantages, no keeping secrets for leverage. The human philosophy was simple. A chain is only as strong as its weakest link. Every species needed to be prepared. The transformation was remarkable. Species that had been peaceful for millennia began building warships. Ancient enemies put aside grievances to train together. Technologies that had been closely guarded secrets were shared freely. And at the center of it all was humanity, not conquering or dominating, but leading by example. Captain Chen, promoted to admiral for his actions, was put in charge of training mixed-species crews. His first lesson to every class was the same. The Vorthack believe in domination through strength. We believe in strength through unity. They conquer alone. We will defend together. The preparation took on an almost desperate urgency. Scout ships were sent to the galaxy's edge to watch for the Vorthack return. Defense platforms were constructed around key worlds. Every available resource was directed toward building the fleet. And then, 6 months after the first encounter, the scouts reported contact. The Vorthack had returned, and this time they brought a proper invasion fleet. Over 1,000 ships, each larger than any vessel in the Council fleet, emerged from the void between galaxies. The message they broadcast was simple: submit to the Vorthack Dominion or be destroyed. You have one rotation to decide. In the emergency council session, panic threatened to take hold. The Vorthack fleet was even larger than feared. Their technology, now that they were no longer underestimating the galaxy, was clearly superior. Some representatives argued for negotiation, others for surrender. Then, Ambassador Mitchell stood. Ladies, gentlemen, and various other designations of respect, I want to remind you of something. 6 months ago, a human mining vessel with no military training destroyed a Vorthack warship. Not because we were stronger, but because we adapted. Because we found their weakness and exploited it. Because we refused to give up. She looked around the chamber. Now we have hundreds of human warships, thousands from our allies, all armed with weapons designed specifically to fight the Vorthack. We have the greatest military alliance in galactic history. We have unity. They have arrogance. I know which I bet on. But their numbers, one representative began. Don't matter if we fight smart, Mitchell interrupted. Humanity has a saying, it's not the size of the dog in the fight, it's the size of the fight in the dog. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're about to show the Vorthack just how much fight this galaxy has. The vote was closer than anyone liked, but in the end, the Council chose to fight. The alternative, living under Vorthack domination, was unacceptable to too many species. And so the galaxy prepared for war, with humanity not as conquerors but as leaders of the free species, exactly as Elder Korvax had predicted. The first battle would come at the Terminus system, chosen because its unusual stellar configuration would limit the Vorthack's numerical advantage. Admiral Chun would lead the combined fleet, using tactics that blended human unconventional thinking with alien technologies. As the fleets moved into position, Chun sent one final message to the Vorthack Supreme War Master. We offered you peace. You chose war. When this is over, remember that you brought this on yourselves. The galaxy stands united. You stand alone. The response came quickly. Alone, we conquered 1,000 galaxies. Together, you will fall just the same. Chun smiled grimly. The Vorthack still didn't understand. They saw unity as weakness, cooperation as softness. They were about to learn why the elders warned against provoking humanity. Not because humans were the strongest, but because they had the gift of making everyone around them stronger too. The Terminus system was a cosmic anomaly that astronomers had studied for centuries. 7 stars locked in a complex gravitational dance created unpredictable gravity wells and radiation storms. Navigation through the system required precise calculations and constant adjustments. It was the perfect battlefield for a smaller fleet facing a numerically superior enemy. Admiral Chun stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, humanity's newest battleship. Around him, the combined fleet of the Galactic Defense Alliance spread out in carefully planned formations. 300 human vessels, 500 from the Altrurians, 400 from the Kellerans, and dozens more from other species. Just over 2,000 ships in total, facing a Vorthack armada of 5,000. All ships report ready, Admiral, his tactical officer announced. The crew was a mix of species, something unthinkable just a year ago. Humans worked alongside Altrurians, Kellerans coordinated with Zenthari. The universal translators worked overtime, but the crew functioned like a well-oiled machine. Chun opened a channel to the entire fleet. This is Admiral Chun to all ships. In 10 minutes, the Vorthack will arrive. They expect us to fight their way. Massive fleets clashing head-on, strength against strength. But we're going to fight our way, smart, unified, and unpredictable. Remember your training. Trust your allies. Today, we show the universe what happens when you threaten our combined peoples. Chin out. The space in front of them rippled as thousands of Vorthack ships dropped out of FTL. Their fleet was a terrifying sight, massive dreadnoughts that dwarfed anything the Alliance had, surrounded by swarms of smaller attack vessels. Each ship was that same organic nightmare of sharp edges and biological weapons that seemed to hunger for destruction. The Vorthak Supreme War Master's message came through on all channels. Behold the might of the Vorthak Dominion. We offer one final chance for surrender. Bow before us, and some of you may live as servants. Resist and face extinction. Chen's response was broadcast just as widely. The free species of this galaxy have a counteroffer. Leave now, return to whatever galaxies you've conquered, and never come back. This is your only warning. The laughter that came through the comm systems was chilling. You amuse us, human. Very well. Let us educate you on the reality of power. The Vorthak fleet began its advance, a massive wall of death moving toward the Alliance positions. But Chen was ready. Execute Plan Chaos Storm, he ordered. Immediately, 300 specially modified probes launched from the Alliance fleet. Each probe was equipped with gravity manipulation technology borrowed from the Altrurians and enhanced by human engineers. They dove into the complex gravity fields of the Seven Stars and began creating artificial fluctuations. Within minutes, the carefully predictable gravity wells of the Terminus system became a chaotic mess. Gravity waves pulled in random directions. Navigation became nearly impossible for the larger ships. The Vorthak dreadnoughts, relying on their mass and power, suddenly found themselves being pulled off course. Phase 2. Activate the net. 100 Kelleran ships, designed for speed and agility, darted forward. They deployed an energy web between them, a technology that combined Zenthri shield projectors with human fusion reactors. The web was invisible until the first Vorthak ships hit it. The organic armor that had seemed so invincible began to resonate at a frequency that caused it to crack and splinter. The Vorthak response was swift and brutal. Weapons that fired some kind of biological plasma tore through several Alliance ships. But for every ship they destroyed, 2 more took its place, adapting to the weapon patterns, finding weaknesses. Sir, the Vorthak are trying to adapt to the gravity fluctuations, reported the science officer. Their organic ships are changing configuration. Time for the human touch, Chen said. Launch Operation Wasp Nest. From the human carriers, thousands of tiny drones launched. Each one was barely bigger than a basketball, equipped with mining lasers calibrated to the exact frequency that had proven effective against Vorthak armor. They were too small for the enemy's targeting systems to track effectively, especially in the chaotic gravity fields. The drones swarmed the Vorthak ships like angry insects, targeting weapon ports, sensor arrays, and engine systems. Individually, they did minimal damage. But thousands of them working together began to wear down even the mighty dreadnoughts. Vorthak fighters incoming, someone shouted. Smaller, more agile Vorthak ships had adapted to the gravity chaos and were racing toward the Alliance fleet. This was expected. Zira Squadron, you're up, Chen commanded. The Aquatic Coalition's ships, filled with water and crewed by beings who thought in 3 dimensions naturally, performed maneuvers that would have been impossible for most species. They danced through the gravity fields like dolphins through waves, their weapons creating a defensive screen that the Vorthak fighters couldn't penetrate. But the Vorthak were learning too. Their ships began coordinating in new patterns, using their biological nature to literally merge vessels together into larger, more powerful configurations. What had been 5,000 ships was becoming 3,000 larger, deadlier vessels. They're adapting faster than predicted, Chen's tactical officer warned. Then, we adapt faster, Chen replied. Signal the prism ships. It's time for the light show. The crystalline prisms had contributed only 50 ships to the fleet, but each one was a marvel of photonic technology. On Chen's signal, they began to glow, brighter and brighter until they seemed like miniature stars. Then, in perfect synchronization, they released their stored energy. Beams of coherent light, split into millions of smaller beams by the crystalline ship's unique structure, filled space with a deadly laser web. The Vorthack's organic armor, evolved to handle kinetic and energy weapons, had no defense against the specific wavelengths the prisms employed. Ships that had shrugged off fusion bombs began to cook from the inside out. The battle raged for hours. The Alliance fleet used every trick, every innovation, every piece of shared technology. When Vorthack boarding pods tried to attach to Alliance ships, they found humans and Kellerans fighting side by side with weapons designed by Altrurians. When the enemy tried to jam communications, Zenthari telepaths maintained coordination through mental links. But the cost was high. For every Vorthack ship destroyed, the Alliance lost vessels too. The debris field grew thick with the wreckage of both fleets. Chun watched the casualty numbers climb with a heavy heart, but he also saw something the Vorthack didn't. They were winning. "Admiral, the Vorthack flagship is breaking from formation," sensors reported. It's massive, sir. 3 times the size of their largest dreadnought." On the main screen, a ship that defied description emerged from the center of the Vorthack fleet. It looked less like a constructed vessel and more like some spaceborne creature, all tentacles and bioweapons. This was the Supreme War Master's personal command ship. "All ships, concentrate fire on that flagship," Chun ordered. But the flagship's defenses were unlike anything they had encountered. Shields that adapted to each weapon frequency, armor that regenerated faster than it could be damaged, and weapons that seemed to bend space itself. A dozen Alliance ships vanished in the first minute of engagement. "We can't penetrate its defenses," someone reported desperately. Chun studied the battlefield, his mind racing through possibilities. Then he saw it, a pattern in the flagship's movements, a rhythm to its regeneration. It was biological, and like all biological things, it had a metabolism. "New plan," he announced. "We're going to give it indigestion. All ships with fusion missiles. Target these coordinates around the flagship. Don't hit it directly. Create a shell of explosions around it. Force it to regenerate constantly." The fleet responded instantly. Hundreds of missiles created a sphere of continuous explosions around the massive Vorthack ship. Its regeneration went into overdrive, healing damage that wasn't quite there yet, but might be. The biological systems began to strain. Prism ships maintain constant light pressure. Keep those regeneration systems working. Kelleran vessels, I need you to get in close and deploy sensor scramblers. Make it think it's taking damage from all directions. The plan was uniquely human in its conception. Not overpower the enemy, but outsmart them. Make their greatest strength into a weakness. The Vorthack flagship's incredible regeneration became a drain on its resources as it tried to heal from phantom damage, while real attacks slipped through its confused defenses. "Sir, I'm reading massive energy fluctuations in the flagship. Its biological systems are going critical. All ships, clear the area. Maximum distance now." The Alliance fleet scattered just as the Vorthack flagship exploded. But this was no ordinary explosion. The biological nature of the ship meant it released clouds of acids, toxins, and bioweapons in its death throes. Several nearby Vorthack ships were caught in the deadly cloud and began dissolving. The psychological impact on the Vorthack fleet was immediate. Their supreme leader was dead, their invincible flagship destroyed by a numerically inferior enemy. For the first time in their recorded history, the Vorthack fleet began to retreat. But Chun wasn't done. This wasn't just about winning one battle. It was about sending a message that would echo across the universe. "Open a channel to the Vorthack fleet," he ordered. When the connection was established, Chun spoke with the authority of someone who had just achieved the impossible. "Vorthack Dominion, this is Admiral Chun of the Galactic Defense Alliance. You came here expecting to face separate, weak species that you could dominate one by one. Instead, you faced a united galaxy. Your greatest ship lies in ruins. Your fleet is in retreat. This is what happens when you threaten any of us." He paused, letting his words sink in. "But we're not conquerors like you. We offer you a choice. Return to your distant galaxies and never threaten this one again, or stay and face complete annihilation. And know this, if you ever return with hostile intent, you won't face 2,000 ships. You'll face 20,000, because every battle you force us to fight makes our alliance stronger. The response came from a Vorthak war master who had assumed command. This is not over, human. The Vorthak dominion spans 100 galaxies. We will return with a force that will darken your stars. And we'll be ready, Chen replied simply. Each time you come, we'll be stronger, more united, more prepared. Is eternal war really what you want? Or would you rather find a way to coexist? The choice is yours, but choose wisely. The galaxy has changed. Adapt or perish. The comm channel closed. The remaining Vorthak ships, now down to less than half their original number, began their retreat to the edge of the system. They jumped to FTL one by one, heading back to the void between galaxies. The Alliance fleet had lost 800 ships and thousands of lives. But they had done something that would reshape galactic politics forever. They had stood together against an overwhelming force and won. In the aftermath of the battle, as rescue ships searched for survivors and engineers studied captured Vorthak technology, Chen received a priority message from Earth. The Galactic Council was in emergency session, and they wanted him to address them immediately. The hyperspace jump back to the Council station took 12 hours. When Chen arrived, he found the Council chambers packed, not just with official representatives, but with observers from every corner of the galaxy. News of the victory had spread faster than light itself. Elder Korvax was the first to speak. Admiral Chun, what you and the Alliance fleet accomplished today was thought impossible. You faced the legendary Vorthak Dominion and not only survived but drove them off. How? Chen looked around the room, seeing faces of a dozen different species, all waiting for his answer. We won because we did something the Vorthak couldn't understand. We trusted each other. Every species brought their strengths to the battle. Altrurian gravity tech, Kelleran speed, Prism photonics, human adaptability. Separately, none of us could have one. Together, we were unstoppable. But they'll return, said a worried voice from the audience. The War Master said so. Probably, Chun agreed. But look what happened in just 6 months. We went from separate, suspicious species to a united fleet. Imagine what we can accomplish in a year or 10 years. Every challenge makes us stronger because we face it together. Ambassador Mitchell stood up. Humanity proposes making the Galactic Defense Alliance permanent. Not just for military threats, but for all challenges. Natural disasters, plagues, scientific advancement, whatever threatens one of us threatens all of us. The debate that followed was unlike any in Council history. There were no hidden agendas, no jockeying for advantage. The battle had changed everything. Species that had maintained cold relations for centuries now spoke of mutual defense treaties. Former enemies discussed shared research projects. The vote, when it came, was unanimous. The Galactic Defense Alliance became the Galactic Unity Compact, a binding agreement that an attack on one was an attack on all, and that the resources of the galaxy would be shared in times of crisis. But perhaps the most significant moment came when the Thraxian Empire, who had been observing but not participating, requested to address the Council. The Thraxians were known for their isolation, their belief that each species should stand alone. Emperor Vrax himself appeared via hologram. We have watched today's events with great interest. For 1,000 years, the Thraxian Empire has stood alone, believing that strength comes from self-reliance. But we have seen a new form of strength today, the strength of unity. The Thraxian Empire formally requests membership in the Galactic Unity Compact. If the Thraxians were joining, everyone would join. Within days, species that had never even attended council meetings were sending representatives. The galaxy was uniting in a way that had never been seen before. Chun was given the newly created position of Supreme Defense Coordinator, responsible for integrating the military forces of all member species. His first act was to establish mixed species training academies where the next generation would learn to work together from the beginning. But the changes went beyond military matters. Human medical technology combined with Altrurian regeneration techniques to cure diseases that had plagued some species for millennia. Kelleran FTL drives merged with Zenthri navigation, created ships that could cross the galaxy in days instead of weeks. The technological explosion was unprecedented. 6 months after the Battle of Terminus, as it came to be called, long-range scouts reported something unexpected. A single Vorthack ship had returned, but it wasn't a warship. It was a diplomatic vessel. The message it carried shocked everyone. The Vorthack Dominion has spent 10,000 years conquering through strength alone. We have never faced defeat until now. This has caused reflection. We wish to understand this thing you call unity. We propose a cultural exchange. One Vorthack will live among you for 1 year, learning your ways. In return, we offer knowledge of the 100 galaxies we have explored. The council was divided. Many didn't trust the Vorthack. Others saw it as a trap. But it was humanity through Admiral Chun who provided the deciding voice. This is how we win, Chun told the council. Not through weapons or war, but by showing them a better way. If we can turn the Vorthack from enemies to allies, imagine what that says to every other potential threat out there. The greatest victory isn't defeating your enemy. It's turning them into a friend. The vote was close, but the cultural exchange was approved. A young Vorthack named Kelix arrived at the Unity Station. To everyone's surprise, he was eager to learn, especially fascinated by the concept of willing cooperation between species. In the Dominion, the strong rule the weak, Kelix explained during one of his lectures. But here, the strong protect the weak, and in doing so become stronger. This is revolutionary to us. The cultural exchange became the model for dozens of similar programs. Species that had been enemies for generations sent their youth to learn from each other. The galaxy was transforming from a collection of separate civilizations into something new, a true galactic community. But the real test came a year later when the Vorthack Dominion sent another message. This time, it wasn't a single ship, but a small fleet. The galaxy held its breath, defense fleets mobilized, but the message they carried was not what anyone expected. The Vorthack Dominion formally requests membership in the Galactic Unity Compact. We have spent a year studying your ways through Kelix's reports. We have debated in our highest councils. We have concluded that our way of eternal conquest leads only to eternal war. We wish to try your way of unity. Will you have us? The debate in the council was fierce. How could they trust a species that had threatened them with extinction just 2 years ago? But it was Elder Korvax who provided the wisdom they needed. This is the true test of our principles, he said. If we believe in unity, in the power of cooperation over conquest, then we must be willing to extend that hand even to former enemies. The humans showed us the way when they turned the Drakkar slaves into allies. Now we must show the same courage. The vote took 3 days and was closer than any in council history. But in the end, the Galactic Unity Compact voted to accept the Vorthack Dominion as provisional members, with full membership to be reviewed after a probationary period. The signing ceremony was broadcast across the galaxy. The fearsome Vorthack War Master who had once promised destruction now pledged to defend the very species he had threatened. It was a moment that redefined what was possible. Admiral Chun, now gray-haired from the stress of the past 2 years, watched from his office on Unity Station. His aide, a young Vorthack who had volunteered to serve on mixed crews, brought him a report. Admiral, the integration is proceeding better than expected. Vorthack biotechnology is revolutionizing medical treatment. Their knowledge of other galaxies has opened up exploration possibilities we never dreamed of. And their warriors are eager to learn human tactical innovation. Shin nodded. And how are the other species responding to Vorthack presence? With caution but growing acceptance. The joint training exercises are helping. When you fight alongside someone, it's hard to see them as a monster. That's the secret, Chin said, looking out at the stars. Unity isn't about being the same. It's about recognizing that our differences make us stronger when we work together. A year after joining the Compact, the Vorthack proved their commitment in the most dramatic way possible. A new threat emerged from the void, a species called the Devourers who consumed entire star systems for resources. When they threatened a cluster of young colonies, it was a joint Vorthack human fleet that responded first. The battle was brutal but decisive. Vorthack bioships adapted to devourer attacks, while human tactical innovation found weaknesses to exploit. Together, they saved billions of lives. The image of Vorthack and human ships fighting side by side became the symbol of the new galactic order. 5 years after first contact with the Vorthack, the galaxy was unrecognizable. The Galactic Unity Compact included every known spacefaring species. Trade flowed freely, knowledge was shared openly, and threats were faced together. The military alliance had evolved into something much more, a true community of worlds. Elder Korvax, in what would be one of his final speeches to the Council, reflected on the transformation. We warned against provoking humanity not because they were conquerors, but because they were catalysts. When threatened, they don't just defend, they transform. They turned our separate, suspicious species into a united galaxy. They showed the Vorthack that there was strength beyond conquest. They proved that together, we are more than the sum of our parts. He paused, looking at the assembled representatives, human and Vorthack sitting together, Altrurians and Kellerans sharing datapads, dozens of species working as one. The galaxy will never be the same. And that, my friends, is humanity's greatest victory. 20 years had passed since the Vorthack joined the Galactic Unity Compact. The galaxy had experienced a golden age of cooperation and advancement that surpassed even the most optimistic predictions. Colonies flourished on worlds once thought uninhabitable. Diseases that had plagued entire species were eradicated, and the combined knowledge of hundreds of civilizations pushed the boundaries of science and understanding. On Earth, in the city of New Geneva, where the Galactic Unity Compact maintained its primary administrative hub, a young human woman named Elena Rodriguez prepared for her first day as a cultural integration specialist. She had grown up in this new galaxy, where seeing a Vorthack warrior discussing philosophy with a Zinthri elder was commonplace, where Altrurian healing centers stood next to human universities. But the galaxy was about to face a test that would dwarf even the Vorthack invasion. It started with the Deep Space Monitoring Station at the edge of the galaxy. The facility was crewed by a mix of species, as was standard now. Commander Thel, a Kelleran, was reviewing routine sensor data when something made his antennae twitch with alarm. "Sarah, come look at this," he called to his human colleague. Sarah Kim, now a senior analyst, studied the readings. Her face went pale. "That's not possible. The energy signature, it's too large." "How large?" Thel asked, though he could read the data himself. It's the size of small moon, but it's moving at FTL speeds. And, Commander, it's not using any propulsion method we recognize. It's just moving space around itself. Alert Unity Command. Priority 1. The alert reached Admiral Chun, now in his 70s, but still sharp as ever. He studied the data from his office on Unity Station, surrounded by his staff of mixed species. The thing approaching their galaxy defied all known physics. "How long until it arrives?" he asked. "At its current speed, 6 days, sir," reported his Vorthack aide, Kellex, who had become one of his most trusted advisors over the years. "And we have no idea what it is." "None, sir." "But," Kellex hesitated. "The energy patterns remind me of something from Vorthack legends. Stories from before we became conquerors, when we were still a young species. They spoke of the architects." Chun leaned forward. "Tell me about these architects." According to legend, they were beings of pure energy who existed between dimensions. They created the fundamental structures of galaxies, seeded life, and then vanished. Most of our scholars dismiss them as myth, but now we have something impossible approaching us, Chin finished. "Assemble the Unity Council, and I want every scientist, every elder, every keeper of legends from every species. If this thing is what your legends suggest, we need to understand it before it arrives." The emergency session was unlike any before. Representatives didn't just bring politicians and military leaders, but also historians, mystics, and keepers of oral traditions. As the data was shared, more species recognized elements from their own ancient stories. The Altrurians spoke of the shapers who taught them to hear the song of stars. The prisms recalled legends of beings made of light who first showed them how to think. Even humanity had myths that seemed relevant, stories of angels, of beings from higher dimensions who influenced early human development. The pattern is clear, Elder Korvac said, his voice heavy with age but still commanding respect. Every species has legends of advanced beings who guided our early development. If these architects have returned, the question is why? And why now? Before anyone could answer, every communication system in the galaxy activated simultaneously. The message was not heard but felt, impressed directly into the consciousness of every sentient being. Children of this galaxy. We're the architects. We seeded your species eons ago and watched you grow. You were an experiment in diversity to see if different forms of life could evolve beyond their nature. The time of evaluation has come. Prepare for judgment. Panic swept through the galaxy. Worlds that had known only peace for decades suddenly faced an existential threat. But this time, the response was different from what it might have been before humanity changed everything. There was fear, yes, but not chaos. The Unity Compact held. Within hours, a response plan was forming. Every species contributed what they could. The Vortex shared everything they knew about beings from higher dimensions. Human scientists worked with Altrurian mystics to understand consciousness-based communication. The prisms attempted to match the energy frequency of the approaching object. Elena Rodriguez found herself at the center of an unprecedented project. Her role as a cultural integration specialist had prepared her to find common ground between different species. Now she was tasked with finding common ground with beings that might not even exist in the same dimensional space. We need to understand what they mean by judgment, she explained to her team, which included members from 50 different species. Every species has different concepts of morality, different values. What standards would beings like this use? A Zinthri philosopher named Kurth raised 4 arms in a gesture of possibility. Perhaps that is the test itself. Not whether we meet some arbitrary standard, but whether we can exist together despite our differences. The timing supports that, added Marcus, a human historian. They arrive now, after we've achieved galactic unity. Not during our wars, not during the Vortex invasion, but after 20 years of peace and cooperation. Elena felt a spark of inspiration. What if this isn't a judgment at all? What if it's a graduation? The idea spread through the working groups like wildfire. The architects had seeded diverse life throughout the galaxy. Now, after millions of years, that life had finally come together in unity. Perhaps this was always the goal. With 3 days until the architects arrived, the galaxy prepared not for war, but for the ultimate diplomatic challenge. Every species contributed their greatest minds, their most profound philosophies, their unique perspectives on existence. The presentation they prepared was not a defense, but a celebration of what they had achieved. But the Vortex, with their long history of conquest, raised a disturbing possibility. War Master Krex, now a defender of the Compact, addressed the Council. What if we fail their judgment? Beings with the power to create galaxies surely have the power to destroy them. Then, we face that together, Admiral Chun replied firmly. If this is the end, we face it as one galaxy, one people. But I don't think beings who seeded life across the stars did so just to destroy it. There's something more here. As the architect construct approached, its true scale became apparent. It wasn't a ship or a station, but something that existed partially in their dimension and partially in others. It looked different to each species that observed it. Humans saw impossible geometric patterns. Vortex saw organic spirals of energy. Altrurians heard it as a symphony of creation. When it reached the edge of the galaxy, it stopped. For one day, nothing happened. Then, projections began appearing on every inhabited world simultaneously. The architects had taken forms that each species could comprehend, appearing humanoid to humans, insectoid to Kellerans, crystalline to prisms. We have observed, the projection spoke. For eons, we watched as the seeds we planted grew in isolation. Some turned inward, achieving personal perfection, but never looking beyond. Others turned outward, conquering and destroying, mistaking dominance for strength. Many destroyed themselves before achieving even basic unity. The projection paused, and when it continued, there was something that might have been satisfaction in its voice. But you have done something unique. You have achieved unity not through conquest, not through homogenization, but through celebration of diversity. The warlike learned peace. The peaceful learned strength. The isolated learned community. Elena was part of the contact team that responded. We almost failed, she admitted. Without humanity's catalyst, without the Vorthack threat forcing us together, we might have remained separate forever. Precisely, the architect replied. That is why we seeded humanity as we did. They were our wild card, designed to adapt rapidly, to unify when threatened, to transform challenge into opportunity. They were the catalyst meant to bring the experiment to its conclusion. Experiment. Admiral Chun stepped forward, age showing in his movements, but none in his voice. Is that all we are to you? You are our greatest success, the architect said, and now there was definite emotion in its communication. We are beings of pure consciousness, unified but uniform. We created diversity to see if it could achieve what we could not, unity, without losing individuality. You have proven it possible. So what happens now? Asked Kellex, representing the transformed Vorthack. Now you graduate, the architect replied. We offer you knowledge, technologies that manipulate reality itself, understanding of dimensions beyond your current perception, the ability to seed life as we once did. But more importantly, we offer you membership in the community of galaxies. You're no longer alone in the universe. The revelation that other galaxies had achieved similar unity, that there was a vast community of diverse civilizations among the stars, was overwhelming. But it was also inspiring. The galaxy had not just survived judgment, they had passed a test millions of years in the making. But the architects had one more surprise. The choice is yours. You may join the community immediately, leap forward into a new age of intergalactic civilization, or you may choose to develop at your own pace, reaching out when you feel ready. We will not impose our path upon you. The debate that followed was the most important in galactic history. Some species wanted to leap forward immediately, hungry for the knowledge and connections the community offered. Others counseled patience, worried about losing their identity in something so vast. It was Elena who proposed a solution that unified them once again. We've learned that our diversity is our strength. Why not apply that here? Those ready to explore the community can do so as ambassadors. Others can focus on strengthening our own galaxy. We don't all have to walk the same path at the same speed. The vote was unanimous. The galaxy would join the community of galaxies, but at its own pace, maintaining its unique character while opening doors to unimaginable possibilities. The architect projection smiled, or did something that felt like smiling. You continue to exceed our hopes. The community will be enriched by your perspective. We leave you with the tools to open doorways between galaxies when you choose. Use them wisely. The massive construct began to fade from their dimension, but before it vanished completely, one final message was delivered specifically to humanity. You have fulfilled your purpose as catalysts beyond our greatest projections. You turned potential enemies into allies, transformed conflict into cooperation, and showed a galaxy how to unite while celebrating differences. The trait we gave you, rapid adaptation under pressure, has become the galaxy's greatest strength. Be proud, humans. You have justified our faith in chaos as a force for positive change. As the architects departed, leaving behind technologies that would take decades to fully understand, the galaxy found itself at a new beginning. The first intergalactic portal was constructed near Earth, a recognition of humanity's role in achieving unity. Through it came ambassadors from distant galaxies, each one a unique collection of unified species with their own stories of achieving harmony. Elena stood in the observation deck of Unity Station, watching the first diplomatic ship from the Andromeda Collective emerge from the portal. Beside her stood representatives of a dozen species, all working together to welcome their new neighbors. My grandmother lived through first contact with the Galactic Council, she mused. She saw humanity go from alone in the universe to part of a galactic community. Now we're part of something even larger. Kellex nodded, his Vorthack features showing what his species had learned to call smile. And it all started because a mining ship refused to surrender to our scouts. Such small moments that reshape destinies. Admiral Chun, despite his age, had insisted on being present for this historic moment. The architects were right about one thing, he said. Humanity's gift was never our technology or our strength. It was our ability to see potential friends in everyone, even our enemies. We didn't conquer the galaxy, we befriended it. The Andromeda delegation emerged, beings of energy and thought who had achieved unity through mental communion rather than diversity. The cultural exchange that followed would enrich both galaxies, adding new perspectives to the ever-growing community of sentient life. But perhaps the most significant change was in how the galaxy saw itself. The revelation that they were part of an experiment could have been crushing, making them feel manipulated or controlled. Instead, they chose to see it as validation. They had been given the tools, diversity, challenge, and humanity's catalytic nature, but they had built something beautiful with them. Schools across the galaxy began teaching a new history, one that showed how every conflict had led to greater unity, how every threat had made them stronger together. The Vorthack invasion was no longer seen as a near disaster, but as the pressure that forged an unbreakable alliance. Humanity's rapid development was not an accident, but a gift that enriched everyone. New colonies were established with careful attention to mixing species from the beginning. Technologies merged in ways that would have been impossible when species guarded their secrets. Art, music, philosophy, and science all exploded with creativity as different perspectives combined. The Vorthack, once the galaxy's greatest threat, became its fiercest defenders. Their biological technology, combined with others' innovations, created medical miracles. Their warrior culture transformed into a protective force that ensured no new threat could divide the galaxy again. 5 years after the Architect revelation, Elena Rodriguez stood before the Galactic Unity Council as its youngest ever Director General. Her election by unanimous consent from all member species was a testament to how far they had come. "We stand at the threshold of infinite possibilities," she addressed the assembly. "Through our portals, we can visit galaxies where consciousness itself evolved differently, where the laws of physics bend to will, where time flows in circles rather than lines. But no matter how far we travel, no matter what wonders we discover, we must remember the lesson that brought us here. Our differences are not weaknesses to overcome, but strengths to celebrate." She paused, looking at the incredibly diverse gathering before her. The architects gave us diversity and challenged us to find unity. We did more than that. We found family. Every species in this galaxy is part of our story. Every perspective makes us stronger. Every voice matters in our choir. As we step into the community of galaxies, we do so not as humans or Vorthack or Altrurians, but as the united galaxy of diverse peoples who choose to face the universe together. Whatever we encounter out there, wonders or threats, friends or challenges, we face it as one. The applause that followed came in many forms: clapping, chittering harmonic resonance, color displays, and more. But the emotion behind it was universal: pride, hope, and unshakable unity. In deep space, construction began on the second intergalactic portal. This one would lead to a galaxy where silicon-based life had achieved unity through mathematical harmony. The cultural exchange promises to revolutionize both galaxies' understanding of consciousness and existence. But even as they reached out to infinity, the galaxy remembered its roots. On Earth, a monument was erected at the site where Captain Chin's mining vessel had first encountered the Vorthack. The inscription, written in every member species' language, read, "Here began the transformation. When faced with threat, humanity chose courage. When offered conflict, they created cooperation. They showed us that the greatest strength is not in standing alone, but in standing together." From this spark came the fire that lit a galaxy and reached beyond the stars. Visitors from across the galaxy came to see it to remember how far they had come. Young Vorthak studied alongside human children in the Memorial Education Center. Altrurian healers worked with Kelleran engineers to maintain the site. It had become a symbol not of human dominance, but of what was possible when species chose unity over division. The galaxy had been transformed, just as Elder Korvax had predicted. But even he had not imagined how complete that transformation would be. They had not just survived the architect's test, they had exceeded it. They had not just achieved unity, they had made it their greatest strength. And in the vast community of galaxies, word spread of the young galaxy that had achieved something special. Delegates from distant realms came to learn how they had turned diversity from a challenge into a gift. The methods developed in their galaxy, cultural integration, mixed species cooperation, unity through diversity, began spreading throughout the universe. Humanity's role as catalyst had not ended with their own galaxy. Through the connections they had fostered, the lessons they had taught, the unity they had inspired, they were helping to transform the entire universe. One friendship at a time, one alliance at a time, one galaxy at a time. The warning of the elders had proven prophetic, but not in the way anyone had expected. Yes, provoking humanity was dangerous. Not because they would conquer you, but because they would change you. They would show you a better way. They would turn your enemies into allies, and your weaknesses into strengths. They would unite you with others you never imagined you could work with. And once that transformation began, there was no going back. The galaxy would never be the same. The universe would never be the same. And everyone who had been touched by humanity's gift of unity agreed. That was the best outcome they could have imagined. 100 years had passed since the architect's revelation. The galaxy that had once trembled at the approach of the Vorthak now stood as a beacon of unity in the vast community of galaxies. The transformation was complete, yet the story was far from over. Deep in the void between galactic superclusters, where space itself seemed to hold its breath, an ancient monitoring station detected something that defied all understanding. The station, jointly operated by veterans from every member species, had been placed there as part of the galaxy's commitment to protecting others from threats they had once faced. Commander Zura Chun Rodriguez, great-granddaughter of the legendary Admiral Chun, and Director General Elena Rodriguez, studied the readings with growing concern. Her mixed heritage was common now. Human adaptability, combined with the longevity treatments developed by the Altrurians, meant families could span species in ways unimaginable a century ago. "These readings can't be right," muttered her second-in-command, a Vorthak Prism hybrid whose crystalline bioarmor sparkled with agitation. "The energy signature is negative. Not low, not zero negative. It's consuming space-time.